Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Influential You podcast. My name is Josh D'Amigo, and I'm an Influential You consultant, senior program faculty member, and your host for this weekly podcast. At Influential You, we teach you how to launch, grow, and scale your business and amplify your professional influence. Since 2009, we've helped thousands of business owners, executives, and entrepreneurs become more influential, more rewarded, and more you. Over the last 10 years of this podcast, we have built a collection of stories from individuals who found satisfaction through our advanced education and shared their stories through these interviews. This season, we've been revisiting some of the classic tales. We've been sharing original episodes of the Influential You podcast, hosted by our CEO and co-founder, John Patterson, and I've been sharing a few takeaways that I've learned from listening to each of the interviews. Today, we'll revisit our first interview with Influential You client, John Baigent. Released in September of 2016, this episode features John Patterson's interview with John Baigent, where he shares what it was like to rebuild his life after the Christchurch earthquake. Now, if you're not familiar with the New Zealand quake, in 2011, a 6.3 magnitude earthquake struck Christchurch, killing 185 people and injuring thousands. I love this story of rebuilding from Mr. Baigent, and you'll get to hear how quickly someone can change their fortunes when they think accurately about their plan. During this episode, you'll hear references to influence ecology, the original name for our organization, which is another way of saying you are the company you keep, and that is still a big part of what we teach our clients and teams today. Enjoy this episode, and I'll see you on the other side.
It's a pleasure to welcome you. Well, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing now.
I actually started life as an accountant, and that didn't last long. It bored the pants off me, and I eventually found my way into property by way of actually working with business owners from a succession planning point of view. And I ended up getting quite sick and tired of fund managers losing my clients' money, and started looking around for other things to invest in, and discovered property. And actually, being the person that I am, I actually got quite stuck into it and found that I was actually very good at property. And so from humble beginnings, we started to develop specific properties for my clients, for them to invest in. As a result of the earthquakes, as you rightly said, we had to start again. Christchurch was devastated. Our rebuild is something like a $40 billion rebuild of a city. And so great adversity, but also great opportunity to actually rebuild a city. And that's what I'm doing at the moment, little bit by little bit. I don't claim to be a large player in the market, but it's something that really drives me is to, well, at the moment I'm building apartments for central city living, but we also have done a few other developments as well for clients. And so that's really what I'm doing. But what I'm finding is that the study that I'm doing with influence ecology is helping me immensely to actually fast track what I'm doing. It's certainly paying dividends in terms of knowing what to do and how to go about doing it.
All right, that's great. We're going to get back to that in just a second. I got to go back to some of these devastations. You know, most of us have some kind of experience of loss or some kind of experience, or maybe it's not us, maybe people we know about the global financial crisis and what people experience there. A devastating earthquake is a little bit harder to imagine. And so I'm sure you remember the day and what happened. As a guy with a life and a business, what happened that day?
4:37 a.m. I got woken up, literally shaken out of bed. Didn't really know what's going on, but then we quickly understood that, this is a big earthquake. Didn't realize the full extent of that. But it was 7.1, I think, on the Richter scale, not far from Christchurch, and it caused a problem. And in fact, I was part of a business consulting practice at the time, we actually never went back to our building. We couldn't get access to the building because the central city was cordoned off. In fact, our building was damaged. And so that immediately put a problem for us in terms of our business. In fact, within the space of a few months, we'd literally lost all our clients. Either they were out of business because of the earthquakes or their clients were out of business. And then in February 2011, we actually had another huge one, and this one really devastated the city. In fact, I think something like 180 odd people lost their lives. Within Christchurch, we had within our central city, we've demolished over 1,500 buildings. And so if you drive around the city now, there's a lot of empty space. But the good thing is that there's lots of new buildings starting to come out of the ground. And it's quite an exciting place. And it's wonderful to be part and parcel of that effort to literally rebuild a city. I mean, who else gets that opportunity to start from scratch again and build a city in a relatively short space of time?
How long did it take for you to get yourself into that frame of mind?
You get over the shock reasonably quickly. I'm the sort of personality, well, that happened. I'm still here, still got my family here. Luckily, our home wasn't severely damaged, so we were actually able to carry on, and so I started turning my thinking to what could be next. One of the early things I looked at was, well, we're going to need a lot of people to come into the city, and there's nowhere for them to stay. So I started looking at workers' accommodation, little villages to house all the workers that are likely to come in to rebuild. So things like that, you have to start thinking quickly, because you can't just sit around and dwell on life and say, oh, gosh, that's tough.
Right. So first there was the housing crisis, then there was the 2010, then the 2011 earthquake. You started to see some opportunity, and you said here in some of the notes you sent me earlier, you charged into things and quickly burnt through what resources you had.
That is actually part of it, is that one, it can be quite naive. There's lots of opportunity and you just rush in. There's an opportunity, let's go and get this done. Without actually thinking through what was required, all the things that were needed. And I actually had people saying, yes, we want this. And so you spend money to get things developed. But when the time came to say, rightio, I want you to sign on the bottom line now because I need your commitment, I'm not quite sure we're ready yet for that. And so there was a lot of, yes, these things need to happen, but in reality, it was going to take a while because there's a lot of moving parts in rebuilding a city, and no one had gone through this before. And so there was a certain amount of lag for people to actually make the right decisions. Meanwhile, people like myself who dived in and wanted to get going, I was literally using up my resources without the corresponding benefit. And so life actually became quite tough for a while.
I think one of the things I've tried to imagine in the earthquake situation or that kind of devastation, of course, the loss of life is devastating. Of course, the disruption's devastating. But when I think about wanting to now go recover, to begin to move on, I can imagine that the resources I might normally depend on, the people I might normally go to, the agencies and all of the bits of business that are in place that can help me, they're not there, or they're not available to me, or they're not reliable, or they're in their own recovery. What was that particular part of this journey like?
You're right in that there was a lot of uncertainty, and people were dealing with their own issues as well. So if you're working with someone and you're trying to work on a project, you had to be cognizant of the fact that each individual working on that project was dealing with their own project, i.e. their circumstances. And, people were having to move out of houses and find accommodation. And so that's actually quite distracting.
Mm-hmm.
The resources available to do things weren't there. A simple little thing, like actually navigating around the city. You don't realise just how much you use visual aids, i.e. buildings, to know where you are and where you should be going. Quite surreal when the buildings aren't there, and so I'm lost. I don't quite, I'm disorientated.
Mm.
But also, one day I can drive down the street, the next day I can't because road cones are up, they're doing something. So all those physical resources were a stretch, but it was the mental resources as well of people making decisions. There was a certain amount of uncertainty, and in the face of that, a lot of people just were clamming up. I can't make a decision right now.
Mm.
And so when you're trying to move forward and you're committing your resources, but you're relying on other people to do their thing, and they won't or can't, that was the naivete that I was reflecting on, that I didn't really stop enough to think about where others were and what they needed. And my, I guess, assessment of timeframes was somewhat optimistic.
So we're going to get into in a minute what you've learned in studying here at Influence Ecology, but what did you learn during this period? How did you grow yourself?
I think if I hadn't have had the background and training that I have had over the years, I would have really, really struggled. I was able to understand that life had changed, therefore I needed to change with it. And it's a difficult one. This is an experiential situation. I mean, it's hard to describe what it was like working through these times, but that ability just to step back a bit from what was going on around was actually a catalyst for thinking, well, okay, what do we need to do next? How do I need to work in terms of all of this? And rather than trying to do everything myself, one of the lessons that I learned was that, we're all in this together, therefore we've actually got to work cooperatively to get out of this.
Hmm.
And so I started forming relationships with people that together we could actually do better than we could individually. And that's actually paid quite significant dividends.
So you had said before you burnt through some of your resources. You knew something had to change. 2013, you get introduced to Influence Ecology. What was your first experience, and what did you begin to quickly discover?
One of my consulting business partners was actually working with Influence Ecology at the time, and she said to me, "John, you've got to do this." And I value her opinions, and so okay, I'll come along. And it was actually a presentation that Drew Knowles was giving here in Christchurch. And being the sort of person that I am, I went onto your website. I had a good look. I think I read through pretty well the whole website, just trying to understand and come to some assessment of Influence Ecology. I wasn't sure, but I went along to this presentation, or a training workshop, I think it was, and I got a sense that there's something here. I suspect that I can get some value from this. I didn't know what it was, and I found that hard to articulate what value I would get out of it. But at the end of it, I gave Drew an undertaking that I would give it some consideration and come back to him in a time frame that I had stated. And over that period of time, which was quite a number of weeks, I was actually contemplating, should I or shouldn't I? At the time, as I said, I'd burned through my resources, and one of the issues was, how can I fund this? I know I've got to do something, because what I'm doing isn't actually working. I actually just took a leap of faith in the end and said, I know I've got to do this. I'll find a way to do this, so let's commit.
All right. Well, so you did that, and then let's go all the way to the end here. I know you just attended the mid-year conference in Auckland. So you'd been with us since 2014, and you just were at the mid-year conference in Auckland. And during that conference, from what I understand, you were quite a leader at the conference, or something. I wasn't there myself. Kirkland, Drew, and many other people were there, but I heard lots about you. What were you doing? What were you saying? How was conference for you?
Probably one of the best conferences I have attended. For the reason for that was I actually put the effort in ahead of time and did the thinking around what I wanted to get out of it, who I wanted to be at that conference, and just working through and doing that preparation. So when I arrived at conference, I was ready. And one of the things that I had set for myself was to participate. It's very easy to sit back and take it all in. And I must confess, my first conference, I did that. But I have to say, I walked away from that thinking, wow, what a bunch of people. This is great. At last I found some people that actually think like I do. So that was really good. So this time I decided that if I actually get on the court and start playing, maybe I'll get more out of it. And that's certainly the case for me.
All right, so let's focus a little bit on our listeners and what they may hope to learn here. What are some of the lessons that you learned participating here at Influence Ecology, whether or not they're recent lessons or lessons that you learned early on? What are some of those things, and what can people, like I said, what can people learn from your journey?
You think you know what you're doing, and maybe, but I would suggest that maybe there's a bit more that you could learn and understand that might benefit about what you do. Specifically, I know what I'm doing, but I don't. I thought I knew what my offer was, what I put out there in the marketplace. But I'd have to say one of the key things that I've learned is how to construct my offerings to clients such that they actually get it. And being the personality that I am, I tend to sort of do quite a few different things. And I've learned to just pull back a little bit, concentrate, and focus on a few things and do them really well. So in terms of understanding how to present my offer, you then learn how to actually do that in such a way that you're transacting with people and doing it in an efficient manner. Over the years, I've actually been involved a lot in sales, and a lot of it is in intangible sales. But the problem that I've faced is that while I've been quite good at it, I've had a lot of wasted leads. And so learning who is and isn't likely to be a customer, because you've defined what it is you actually do and who your target market is actually very useful in terms of the resources that you have, i.e. you don't waste a lot of time. You're working with those that actually want and need to work with you and not wasting time. One of the little things that I have picked up has been learning how to decline. I've actually not wasted a lot of time chasing some people thinking, oh yes, they're going to buy, they're going to do something, when in fact they were never going to. By actually putting some processes around decline in place, I've quickly weeded out those that are likely to waste time, which actually gives me more time to work on the real important things. Also recognising different personalities. I won't say that I've got that one down pat yet, but it's certainly helping to recognise the different personality types. As an example, some real estate agents I use to sell my properties, naturally they are going to be of a personality that's out there, sort of relationship orientated, and people who don't like to be tied down to specific things. And one of them, I need them to do some specific things, but understanding that personality has helped me in the way that I actually get them to do certain things.
Can you give us an example?
Reporting. We've got a large project on at the moment, and I've got one particular agent that we've asked him to report weekly on where things are at. I want to know where he's at with the pipeline. Yeah. Because of timing issues around construction and everything like that. But I can't just say, report to me weekly. I've actually got to put it in terms that fits in with him. So we've gone through that aspect, and now with a little bit of prompting from time to time, I'm getting that feedback that I need to feed back into the construction side of things. So it's just understanding those personality traits has been a huge help.
We will be right back with the rest of John's story, but first, a reminder that the Influential You podcast is brought to you by Thrive, Influential You's self-guided training. Thrive is a professional self-development program that allows you to learn at your own pace. Thrive members enjoy weekly live e-coaching sessions and an ever-expanding library of exclusive video lessons taught by our faculty, consultants, and industry experts. Sign up today and use promo code 30days to get a Thrive self-guided training subscription free for 30 days. That's coupon code 30DAYS. For links or to find out more, you can click the link in the show notes for this podcast, or in the US or Canada, you can text the word Thrive to 805-262-9008, and we'll send you the registration link right to your mobile phone. Again, text the word Thrive to 805-262-9008. Cancel at any time, and let's get back to the interview.
Yeah, let's talk about that one just for a second, because, some people who don't understand personalities, especially in the way that we teach it, might just say, well, just, tell them they need to do it or they're fired, or something like that, right? Which is obviously something you can do. Why would you be both committed to this person's freedom, this relationship person, his personality? Why would you be both committed to that and producing some kind of constraint? How does that benefit you, and how does that benefit them?
If they understand that we're trying to do something together and they've got a little bit of freedom to operate, so long as I can get what I need, I don't have to be so hard and fast. And I'd have to say, in the past, I have been quite hard and fast, do this or else. I've learned that, well, that works sometimes, but quite often it doesn't work. Therefore, if you can work with someone's personality and still achieve a result, then everybody's happy. And for me, this particular person actually has a pretty good machine. If you give them the right properties, they'll get sold. So it's my benefit if he actually gets off and really sort of gets inspired by what he's selling and gets to work. But I can't constrain him because I want him to work my way. I've got to let him do what he's good at, so long as he can feed into me the things that I need for me to do what I need to do.
Great example of that. Very good. Well, you talked a little bit about the influence principles, the ways in which you gained someone's compliance. In your notes, I've got some things about that. What have you learned about that?
The weapons of influence, as we call them. People will probably know and recognize them in general terms, but when you really understand how some of these psychological things work, and providing that you're doing it in an ethical way, I'm not talking about maliciously trying to manipulate people, but we are inundated with information, and it seems to me that we take these shortcuts to making decisions. So if I can actually influence how someone operates or takes shortcuts to their advantage and to mine, then so be it. And learning that has been very useful. Also, not only just in a business sense, but actually in a personal sense with family. Recognizing, the different personalities within my family, and actually having a better understanding of how to deal with some people. An example, my son is a personality that is one where I want to think about that, I'll assess that, and I'll give you an answer. But he won't necessarily come up with something. He's assessing other people's way of doing things, a little bit judgy, if you like. Knowing how to deal with that personality, and that if you make a request of him, you may get a no, but I realise that that's not always a no, it's actually a maybe. And so if I just keep going in subtle ways and let him come to a conclusion, then we actually get what we both want.
Well said. All right. I want to talk a little bit about health because I know this has been something you've gained quite a bit from studying here. First of all, if you'll tell our listeners why do we study health and how come we call it biology?
If you haven't got your health, you've got nothing. And so if you're not fit, how can you transact? And some good examples. I enjoy going to conference in Ojai. Unfortunately, this year I went by myself. My wife didn't come along because she actually wasn't well. She was actually unfit to travel. So if you haven't got your biology working well, it can have an impact on your life. I also have realized for a long time that if I'm fit, my brain works a lot better than when I'm unfit. And in fact, I actually enjoy exercising because of the mental buzz that I get out of it. I feel more alive. And I'd have to say that having that emphasized, I guess, with the study with influence psychology has been life-changing, shall we say.
Yeah, in fact, you said, in fact, the study and awareness of my biology literally saved my life. What do you mean by that?
By studying our biology and how our bodies effectively work, how our brain works, made me realize that I needed to do more exercise, keep exercising, to increase my fitness levels. So I'm pleased that I was doing that, and we measure our exercise just to see how we're going. Earlier this year, I actually had a major health issue, and if it wasn't for my awareness of my biology, I knew something wasn't right. I wouldn't be here. So I actually realized that something wasn't right with me, and rather than doing nothing, I actually took myself straight to hospital. If I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be alive.
Wow.
So I can wholeheartedly say that my work with influence ecology has been life-changing and life-saving, because without the awareness of all that, I wouldn't be here. So I really appreciate and thank you and Kirkland for the work that you've done, because it has had a dramatic impact on me.
Well, it's our pleasure. It's a privilege to know you and a privilege to work with you. And I knew some of your story, but I didn't know all of it. And it's wonderful to learn so much from someone who's so resilient. You know, you do just continue to bounce back. But I think what's also great about you and just listening to you is it's funny. You have I don't know if I'll say this right, but you have this amazing combination of confidence and humility at the same time. You're aware of your ability to get something done, but you also know so well where you need help and that you're not Superman, which I think is just such a rare combination. Anything you want to say about that?
Yes, there is actually. Not so much about me, but you can't do it by yourself. I used to think I could, but what I have learned is that we actually function with others and we need others. And so if you try and do things by yourself, it's hard work. And one of the real benefits that I've had with this work with influence psychology is an understanding and some skill set development in working with ecologies. And we talk about influence ecology, influence being the transacting part. But for me, the ecology aspect is actually as important, if not more important. The reason I've been able to do a lot of things that I have done since the earthquakes has been because I have actually managed to transact my way into higher and higher ecologies. And when you do that, you start to realize just how potent things can be when you're working with the right people. And the ecology part of influence ecology, I mentioned it earlier, that my first conference, I came away from that thinking, wow, I've finally found a bunch of people that think like I do. And they are an amazing bunch of smart people. And just to be around such a bunch of people is quite inspiring. Yes, I might, sit around and be calm and sort of take things in, but I'm really fizzing inside when I with a bunch of people that really do add a lot of value.
Said so well. All right. So sometimes there are things that people know they'd like the world to know. I used to ask people some time ago, imagine you're at the end of your life and you get to stand in front of the masses and say anything. What would you like to say? So I want to give you that moment to say anything you'd like to say to the masses.
I mentioned at the start that I started life as an accountant. I also trained as a financial planner, and I have some issues with some of the current thinking that abounds out there, and from a financial current, if you like. We're taught to say, look, you save over a long period of time, and then wisdom suggests that you retire at about 70% of your pre-retirement income. We don't have lots of money, therefore we save a little bit every week, suggesting that put it away with a fund manager, dollar cost average over time, and over a period of time, you'll grow some wealth. That has its limitations. You're actually using pre or post-tax dollars, tax-paid dollars. It relies on the performance of fund managers. There's a risk and reward trade-off. Putting money into managed funds is not overly risky, and it's not overly rewarding either. You take the risk and the fund manager gets the rewards. In my financial planning training, I was taught that it was prudent to have a diversified portfolio, but I had a problem with that. Financial literacy isn't really taught in schools. Investing is clouded in mystery, so best to leave it to the experts. The trouble is they actually act like a bunch of reef. If you look at the stock market, something happens and everybody rushes in or rushes out without actually thinking about the underlying fundamentals. For those who have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's a good book. Those who haven't, this is actually a very brief summary. Basic accounting. It's assets and liabilities, income and expenditure. And in essence, spend less than you earn. Put your surplus into income assets, i.e. things that earn money, and pay off your liabilities, things that cost you money. And when the income off your asset base is sufficient to fund your lifestyle, that's wealth. And why would you want to take a drop in income at retirement when you're probably going to need more? So learn how to grow your assets until you can reach that position, protect your assets, and that includes you. So protect yourself and have insurance in place that if something happens to you, that asset base is immediately there. And what I would suggest is treat your financial well-being as if it was a business. Have a goal, take stock of your assets and liabilities, make a plan, work the plan, and develop the team, which means yourself. Educate yourself. And I would highly recommend influence ecology as a way of educating yourself. For those who are in business, your business is probably your greatest asset. Learn how to grow and drive that asset. Focus and concentrate on your business because that's where you're going to grow your wealth. Don't diversify necessarily until you've got your business well understood and operating, and then go out and get some more businesses because that's investing in shares, isn't it? Concentrate, educate yourself, and don't leave it to someone else.
Very good. Well, John, it has been such a pleasure to get to know you just a little bit more, and I'm sure that all of our listeners have learned a great deal, both in terms of your knowledge and your resilience. It's inspiring to hear what you have to say. So thank you so very much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
I continue to grow more and more impressed with John and his ambition. He simply will not be done in by the situations and circumstances that might make others crumble. And I picked today's talk because of him. This recording is a short piece from our 2014 annual member conference. This is the global conference where ambitious professionals come from around the world to connect, study, and practice. To give you a picture, we're at the Ojai Valley Inn and Spa. Now, this is a 5-star, 5-diamond, 200-acre resort in a picturesque valley near the Pacific Ocean in Southern California. We're in a big ballroom, and it's the final day of a 5-day conference, and I'm out to confront the naivete of being satisfied. You'll hear me, co-founder Kirkland Tibbels, and some of our members as we challenge how most people wait for life to turn out. There are two main points here. One is that we don't know what would satisfy us, and two, that even though we know what to do, we often do not and will not produce the situations, conditions, and environments we require to live a rich and satisfying life. I do need to train you in a term we call the current. The current is like a river you get swept up in, and it is the sum of the narratives which influence us in the marketplace. It is often filled with platitudes, ideas, and other nonsense that many don't take the time to think accurately about, and as such, they get swept up in the current.
How many of you are satisfied with the conference? Satisfied, right? Thank you. I woke up this morning and I was thinking about my experience in the conference, and Kirkland, you and I have had the opportunity to talk about it. Just thinking about the experience in the conference, and I know that sometimes I have my biology inform me of whether or not an experience was a good thing. So I know it was valuable because I'm excited. Or I know it was valuable because I'm less motivated to go kick some ass. Right? And I'm just not sure that that demonstrates ambitious adult. Just not sure. I gotta check it. Because in some discourses and in the current, you might be left at the end of a conference motivated, ready, armed, excited, and you know that your biology tells you you're in great shape to go, right? And that could be a possible result. I don't know if it's the result you produce here. So I asked you if you're satisfied, and some of you checked in with your biology. Some of you checked in with whether or not an aim was met. But I want to stop and pause and ask you, are you satisfied with the conference? Are you satisfied with the conference? Again, now that I said all that, if you're satisfied with the conference, put your hand up. And it's totally fine if you're satisfied. Just put your hand up. Okay, if you put real high, just real quick. Okay, good. And then if your hand is not up, put your hand up. Okay, great. Awesome. So let me just interact with a couple of people here. Paul, you can stand up for just a moment. Paul over here. And then, I'm sorry. Nate, I looked at it. It looked like it said Aaron in it. Paul, I really better. So Paul, you raised your hand. Just now, of course. So I asked why did you raise your hand? Did you raise your hand because you just didn't raise your hand, or you raised your hand because you're not satisfied?
I raised my hand because I'm not satisfied.
Right. Tell me about that.
So one of the things I came here to get out of the conference was how to take off the gloves with competition and be real focused on how to implement and having a program for what I'm going to do over the next 6 months.
Okay, good. And do you know if that's the right word to be a correspondent?
Yes.
Okay, good. I would accept and I would trust that is right. And are you transacting with the general ecology or with us to make sure that happens?
Yes.
Great. And is it your commitment, not your intent, not your intention, your commitment to leave here today being satisfied that you accomplished that?
Yes.
Great. Good, I accept. Anything else about that?
Nope.
Good. And am I going to make sure that happens?
No.
Okay. You are, right?
Correct.
I'm not going to, there's no possible way I could do what I just did with each one of you. There's not a possible way. I mean, I could just stand you up, but I'm not going to do that. So, up to you, right?
Yes.
Right, next call. Did I call him? Yeah. Thank you.
I just have some judgments, I think, where I have got a number of things that were great. My experience has been that the time invested and the money invested is disproportionate to what I've got. And I am totally committed to change that by the end of the day. But I just felt like yesterday after lunch was mostly a waste of time. And I felt like the first day could have been done, one session and not a whole day. And so I guess I'm just like, let's go. Let's.
Yes. Good.
So, yeah.
Love it. Love it. And do you know what would? Just love this. Isn't this fantastic? So what would satisfy you?
That's the trouble.
Yeah. You see, you don't know what would satisfy you. Some of you really do hope that you come in here and there's this golden nugget. Kirkland, in his wisdom, says this thing. And you go, that's the answer I've been waiting for. That's the thing that I've been hoping to hear. Oh my God! Right? You're waiting for something. And many of you don't know what you're here to get. You don't know what you're here to get. You just hope that by osmosis it gets on you. Or something said that, I don't know, pops something or, I don't know, something. It's a very adult, even naive, not ambitious adult, way to participate in a program trained to teach you in transactional competence. You're gonna sit here like TV and hope a moment moves you. Some of you are just laughing and giggling. You're gonna hope that this movie, as it plays out, has a golden moment at the end where all is transformed and we live happily ever after, and you're waiting for that moment. Are you waiting for that moment? Really? Really? Are you waiting for that? Really? Check it. Just check it. Check it. See, in the narrative of the current you live in, there is for you, at the end of a thing, the triumph. And you're waiting for the triumph. It is part of every story told around a campfire from the time we crawl out of a cave until the last movie was just the triumph at the end. And you're waiting. I promise you're waiting. So I ask the question, is the conference satisfying or not? And some of you don't even know what it would look like if it hit you upside the head. So since this is the last day, I don't have a timer, I want to say a timer. Okay, this is the last day, time's running out. This is the last day and time's running out. You've got to get clear about what it is that will have this conference for you be satisfied. And you may have to do some accurate thinking to make that determination, because it's likely you're waiting for a biological moment. Oh, just 1 second. Data? Did you hear yourself and all that?
I did, and there's one thing more, if I may. I guess what I totally get that, and I agree, and I can own a lot of that.
Good.
But the other part of it for me is that if it's mine to do, again, there's just a little bit of a. If that's what there is for me to do, fabulous. Let me get a bunch of people together in Denver and not pay the money to come here and take the time to do all of this.
Have you done that?
No.
Are you gonna?
No.
Is it happening?
No.
Has it happened? Fantastic.
Not within Wilson College.
No. Have you got a group of people together and worked on learning how to transact with the marketplace power? Yes or no? No. Will you?
No.
Can you now?
No.
Have you got anything out of this conference like that you would go home and use and and learn how to have some. Okay. Now, if I made a list of people, John, I want you to work with me. Okay. Oh, by the way, hi. Why did I do that, Joe? Why did I do that? Give Joe a mic. If you want to get it, I want to do it right. Why did I just do that thing? Why did I come here first and then go? Hi, and the laugh. You hear the laugh? It was like one of those that we comics in the world go, oh, that's awesome. Okay, now I've got another good, probably 4 or 5 minutes morning. Why did I do that? Because the reason I asked you is because you were like this. Like this, they just kind of, why did I do that?
I'm Joe. I'm a judge.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But you did this thing.
I'm sure I did.
During the laugh. Who knows why I did that? Mary.
Because how important the environment is to the learning that's happening.
Right. It was not to get up all over his business.
Yes,
Who did I do the laugh for? Can you hear him?
you as a performer
And you.
and the rest of us.
I had to take a breath and go, okay, hang on a second. Nathan, you should know better. I mean, it's just, working data, you're almost too smart for dumb damn good. If you were dumb like me, you'd have a lot more money. How many of you came here to be done and be up? No, close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes. Okay. How many of you recognize in that genius work of, and I was back there, but I've got the evidence. You haven't seen me writing. I was writing down. I paid good money to come here and have you do me. As he started going, some of you came here, that's like it happens, the environment. And then, right, I could have just done this in Denver. No, because there is no environment for this.
If you'd like to know more about us, go to influentialu.global and explore our courses, consulting, and conferences. We offer a 4-year curriculum for those seeking a truly advanced experience. However, if you're brand new to Influential You, we recommend that you start with Thrive. It's our self-guided training. Thrive is a self-guided program that allows you to learn at your own pace. Thrive members enjoy weekly live e-coaching sessions and an ever-expanding library of exclusive video lessons with our faculty, thought leaders, and industry experts. You'll get proven proprietary tools to accurately assess your career and develop a realistic strategy to achieve your aims faster. Your membership also includes chat access to faculty, plus discounts to our transformative conferences. Sign up today and use promo code 30days for a free 30-day test drive of Influential U's Thrive program. That code, 30DAYS, and you may cancel at any time. Thank you so much for listening today. You'll find new episodes on our website, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, so you may easily share this episode with others. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or any place that you listen to quality podcasts. Next week on the Influential You podcast, we have Sean Gillespie, a talented artist who learned to not be affected by people's indifference, but rather to accept and interrupt their indifference, and what that ended up meaning for his business. You'll enjoy this one. You may check out our show notes for links to connect with our guests, plus links to websites, books, or special downloads that we talked about on today's episode. This season's podcasts were made possible by the Influential You staff, faculty, and our wonderful members all around the world, with a special thanks to our executive producer, Tyson Crandall, Joey Anderley, our in-studio producer, thank you, Joey, with contributions from John Patterson, Michael Teehee, Daryl Anderley, Paul West, and Liz Smiley, and a special thanks to our guest, John Baigent. The Influential You podcast is produced in Ventura, California. This episode was originally recorded in September of 2016. The podcast theme is by Chris Standring, entitled Fast Trained Everywhere. And if you haven't yet offered a rating or review, I ask that you take a moment, go to iTunes or your podcast app and let us know what you think. This helps us more than you know. We'll see you next time on the Influential You podcast.